Hello.
Good morning. um, We're having a weird morning. Also, we had someone, which I think asked us if we wouldn't mind starting 30 minutes later because they had some stuff that they wanted to listen in and learn about VA loans. And so we started 30 minutes late because we want them to be able to hear. But hi, everybody. We're so excited. So excited to see you. And we have been working with an amazing company called ICU Visuals, and they've been doing some really cool stuff. If you follow Angela on social at all, they have been doing some listing videos for her. They did some cool stuff for us for the podcast, and they're really amazing and affordable. I looked at their prices and I was actually pretty shocked by how affordable they are for the type of service that they offer. So they do video work, listing videos, commercials for you, for your own marketing, all kinds of things. So ICU Visuals. And what we'll do is when we're done with the stream today, we'll pop their contact information in the comments for you so that you guys can connect with them. But I would highly recommend that you do.
Honestly, all I do is send them all of my listing photos and they turn it into something incredible. It makes it look like I'm awesome, and I'm not. But they make me look that way. So for like $100, so cool. You can't beat that.
Cool. And I'm sure your clients right, and it's probably incredible. So, all right, today we're discussing what I feel like is a little bit of a hard subject. And I think it's a hard subject because we have strong opinions on this, and other people have strong opinions on this, and they are differing strong opinions. And I am, not like 100% sure where this came from, how this started, but we're going to talk about VA loans. And obviously, a little bit of a disclaimer before we really jump in. Angela and I are not lenders. We've both been in the business about 20 years, and we've both had the privilege of working in heavy military communities and with really good lenders who have taught us a lot about VA loans. So we're going to talk about things from our perspective, and then if you have more questions that you want to know, we can recommend lenders you reach out to, or reach out to, really any good lender who does VA loans. But when the market, okay, so first I want to talk about, like, when do you feel like you started to see, I'm going to say discrimination, which I feel like is a really strong word, but I 100% believe that's what it is.
Yeah,
so
it is.
I think that really started when the market started picking up speed over the last maybe like 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, even before that here, there was always like those realtors that would not accept VA loans. And I'm like, what the hell? Why? But yeah, I mean, definitely it's been a bigger uptick in the last 5 years.
So I feel like there's so much misinformation out there about it.
So much, yeah.
So I think that personally, what I think the big things are that people worry about are
appraisals.
Yeah. So I think for some reason, I think that agent, and listen, okay, there's a difference between what the client thinks and what the agent thinks. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, most of what the client thinks comes from what the agent thinks. So in my opinion, most of this is not coming from the sellers, right? But I think that the agents worry about veterans are putting no money down, and so that means that there's something wrong, that they don't have money to put down. And then I think that they worry about appraisals, whether it's appraisal value or issues, right? Like repairs,
conditions
coming up at appraisal. And I think that they worry that they have more stringent guidelines and take forever to close. So let's like break
And
all
they can back out at any time is what I hear, and get their earnest money back, which whatever.
Interesting. Okay, so let's break these bad boys down one at a time. So okay, so the first one that I hear from agents is a VA loan is subpar to FHA where they're putting down 3.5%, or for sure conventional where they're putting down 10 or 20% because the veteran is putting down $0. So if you don't know this already, Angela's former military. She was Air Force. Her husband was also military, so she's got that perspective too. So can you tell us, in your own words, like how does a veteran become eligible for a VA loan, and like what does it mean for a veteran? What's the benefit to them?
So part of your service in the military, one of the benefits of joining the military is that you have access to a VA home loan. The way that you get that is you have to, I believe you have to be active duty for more than 6 months. Or if you're Guard or Reserve, you have to be, have put in the equivalent in active duty time on your weekends. And so one of those benefits is that you can literally buy a house with no money down. That doesn't mean that someone isn't guaranteeing that loan, because they are. That's what your funding fee is. That's tacked onto the back of your loan, is that guarantee from the VA. But I honestly don't get it. It's really hard for me to stay impartial because it straight up pisses me off, honestly, because I see it even in our market in Colorado Springs. Not accepting a VA home loan is detrimental to your seller because the amount of people that are borrowing on a VA loan here is astronomically higher than pretty much anywhere else in the country, I would think, because we've got like 5 military bases here within a very small city. So if you're advising your client not to take VA loans and that's 99% of the market, that's kind of a problem, right?
So yeah, I mean, again, like this one's hard for us because it's just to not come on here like hot and screaming, because this is not cool, and that's why we're talking about it. And I think it's even more important about right now because of what's going on in the world right now, which means what I'm saying by that is like our military is getting deployed, thinking about getting deployed. There's a lot going on with the military right now. So Angela, like, let's just go with your example. If you're cool, you don't have to give everybody your personal details, obviously, but so you just sold your home.
I did.
And
to VA.
Just purchased a new home, right? And that new home that you purchased, you did do with $0 down because both your husband and yourself earned the right to through your service to this country. But when you bought that home, did it mean that you had no money?
No.
Is that the reason why you put $0 down?
Well, not only did we put $0 down, my husband has disability, so we didn't even have to pay a funding fee. And the purchase price of the house that we bought was $950,000. We then we're putting about $250,000 of our own money into the house to improve it. So no, just because I'm using a VA loan on my house does not mean I don't have the money to put down. We sold our house for $800,000, our previous house, and we had quite a bit of equity in it. Sold it to some military folks that also bought it with $0 down and also had VA disability. And we actually didn't have any appraisal issues on either side, which is weird.
So what I want people to hear though, like super, super clearly, is Angela had equity and she had liquid cash assets. It's not, there is a 1,762% difference between down payment assistance and a VA loan. You guys, they're not the same thing. People do not do VA loans because they don't have the money to buy a house. They do VA loans because they've earned the right to use that benefit for serving their country. And there's other benefits that come along with it too. There's different rates. There's different factors. But that's the feel like we've been having internet issues all day, you guys. It's snowing and it's driving me crazy. So the next thing that I think that we worry about, people worry about is appraisal. So like this one, I don't even know where this came from either. Well, actually, I kind of know where this one came from. I do feel like for a while, VA appraisers were tougher.
Yeah.
You know, they were maybe calling out like more stuff. And so all of a sudden, like somebody at some point basically decided, well, if we have our choice of multiple offers, we're going to pick the one that's not VA because we can more guarantee that like the appraiser isn't going to ask to do a bunch of bullshit during the appraisal process. Right. I've seen
really the only thing the appraisers care about are like chipping paint for some reason and like rotted deck boards. So if your house has chipping paint or rotted deck boards and you're listing it, maybe fix those things if you want to appeal to more buyers.
Well, that's I would say when I do a listing presentation, 100% that's something that I always talk to the homeowners about. I do not leave the house without walking around the perimeter of the house and going, you've got some peeling paint here or chipping paint here, and you can guarantee, and I don't really care if it's FHA, VA, or a conventional, they're probably going to tag you for it. So you've got two choices. Either just touch it up before we get on the market, or you know that you're going to have to deal with it when we get to appraisal. If you look at the VA guidelines, which by the way, we can post for you, they're in writing, like what they're looking for. But they feel that people could eat the paint chips and that could be a health hazard. But it's the same thing with FHA. In my opinion, I've been tagged with way more stuff on FHA appraisals in the past than I have been on VA.
Yeah. Honestly, I love VA appraisals right now because I have the opportunity as an agent to fight the appraisal. It's called Tidewater, is the initiative that they invoke if the house is not coming in at contract price. And what that does is it gives the listing agent and the buyer's agent the ability to submit new comps, give them basically the evidence they need to come in at value. That's all they're looking for is evidence. Because at the end of the day, their appraisal is just their opinion of value. They will sometimes ask for things like for you to put it into a grid pattern. If you've ever seen that, I always tell them I'm not a licensed appraiser. I don't know what that stuff means, even though I do. I just don't want that extra work for myself or the liability. So what I'll do is I'll take a whole bunch of the MLS sheets and I will literally write down every feature that each one of those houses has versus the subject property, which is my house, my listing. And I'll say, hey, my house has this. I give a value of X. And I literally just send those documents over to the appraiser, and then I call them on the phone. I pick the phone up, call them, and walk them through it. And inevitably, they end up coming in at contract price. Isn't that crazy? Even when there's no other comps available to support the price that we're asking, as long as you give them some evidence that you've done your research and the house is worth what people are paying for it, that's all they care about. They just need that evidence to put in their report and say, this is where we got it. That's it.
And listen, I would love to do a whole episode on appraisals, and I think we should do that in the next couple of weeks. We'll bring on an appraiser. We'll talk about like how they adjust, what they're really looking for, all the different things. But an appraiser's job by nature is to protect the buyer, right?
And the bank.
And the bank, and that's what they're hired for. And I don't know where people came up with the fact that like every VA appraiser just like rolled in poop that morning and had like the worst day of his whole life and is super grumpy. I personally, yes, I have had issues come up on VA appraisals. Now, I know what's going to come up. I knew those issues. I've never been surprised, not one time in my career, by anything that's come up on an appraisal outside of value that condition-wise we've had to deal with. So I've known that potentially things might come up, but I do believe I've had more issues with FHA. Yeah.
100%.
Because FHA requires different stuff. So like FHA, they require that inspector goes up in the attic, into the crawl space. So like homes are different. Homes, like you can get them looking into all kinds of weird places that cause even more problems, right? Yeah,
definitely.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
on the VA appraisals that I've I've always known what they were going to come back with, issues wise. I might try to like push it through and just tell my seller, hey, this is probably going to come up, but if it doesn't, great. But if it does, we're going to address it then instead of fixing it now, because sometimes it comes down to money and they might not have it, and might not want me to fix it, and they might need to get it on the market like immediately. But usually the only things that ever come up are the chipping paint and rotten out deck boards. And honestly, it's not even really for the bank, it's for the borrower. Like, they just want to make sure that those people aren't going to have to come out of pocket with a whole bunch of money when their house falls apart, right? Like, they're not trying to be unreasonable, because if you have any idea what military members are making for a living, it's not much. So this benefit of a VA loan is a massive value for them. And, I could have used a conventional loan to buy my house, but the interest rates were worse. I would have had to put more money down. Why wouldn't I just use the eligibility that I have and use my VA loan? Like, what's wrong with that?
Okay, well, think about it this way. Okay, so like, I don't know, I'll use two examples that I've actually personally done in the last 6 months. So the lease was up on my car. I needed a new car. Went to purchase the car, and they gave me two options. They were running special financing at 0%, or they were like, you can put down X amount of dollars. I went with 0% financing. It's the same as cash, right? Like,
right.
Then I am putting new flooring in my house, and same thing. The flooring company had 3 years, 0% interest financing. Now, I could have bought the car in cash. I could have bought the flooring in cash. But I didn't, because I had an incentive, right, to finance it in that specific way. And it's the same thing for VA. The only difference is I didn't serve my country and earn the right. So those guys deserve it even more. But I just don't understand where this came from, where it's like, oh, VA 0 down equals they have no money.
Yeah. I don't understand why it's become such a controversial issue with other agents. Like, I really don't understand it. But
I think it needs to be a protective class. Like, I really think that NAR needs to do something about this. I mean, the number of times in the last 2 years that I have seen listing agents, and you guys, if you are doing this, please don't do this. Please be careful. It's so stupid. They're putting in like the MLS in writing, no VA loans accepted. Now, there are situations in which a house will truly, absolutely not qualify for FHA or VA. That is if you don't have a heat source, if you don't have a working heat source in the kitchen, a microwave or an oven, if you don't have flooring, like if you're down to subfloor, if you have massive structural damage over a certain threshold, it's a very rare percentage of properties that will not truly go FHA or VA. Don't put that crap in your MLS. Like,
most of those won't even go conventional either. They would have to go conventional 25% down investor.
Yeah.
Cash.
Or a renovation loan, like a 203K, right? So I just don't, please protect yourself and don't put that crap in the MLS, because here's my thing. Even if NAR hasn't made it a protected class, I'd be surprised if sometime soon some listing agent ends up on national news for writing some crap like that in their listing, and a veteran sees it, right? Yeah. So absolutely crazy pants. Okay, so the other like misconception I feel like about VA that's out there is, oh, well, veterans loans only go for a certain dollar amount. Like, people don't understand that there are also VA jumbo loans, and that, you can buy more house. So like, talk about that with your house, because your house was above conventional conforming VA loan limit. So how did that work for you?
Well, there is no loan limit anymore for VA loans if you have full entitlement and full eligibility. So I could have bought a $2 million house with $0 down if I felt like it, or a $10 million house. If my eligibility was only, used up partially by another house, then they would take that into account. Like, hey, you have another house at $400,000. Really, your eligibility says that you guys can buy a house that's, another $350,000 before you have to start putting down 25% of the difference between the amount of the house and the amount that you're financing, which is still better than most conventional products. But there is no loan limit when you have full entitlement. So I sold our previous house and relinquished all of our entitlement. So we had full entitlement again. We went in and bought another house on our VA with zero money down for $950,000. And that house was built in 94, had nothing updated in the house. The only thing was a very small amount of chipping paint on the one side trim of the garage door, which the VA guy called out. So we just went over and did it. So I have helped clients buy houses. The oldest house, oldest farmhouse in Fountain, I had VA clients buy for $275,000. It's on 6 acres. Fountain is very close to Fort Carson. And these folks were super handy, and we knew that they were going to call out a bunch of stuff. The house needed painted. It needed some work. I was not the listing agent. I was the buyer's agent. It needed a new foundation. So my buyers at the closing table cut a check, and we had a new foundation poured. We had the house painted. We can do all those things. It doesn't mean they don't qualify to buy the house. They've got the money to pay for those things. It's not a big deal. So I think that that's something that people just don't realize, that there are resources out there. Just because they're military doesn't mean that they're broke. So a lot of them actually have quite a bit of money saved up because they're used to saving. So
right, but okay, why do they? I mean, 100 million reasons why they have money saved up. But let's talk about this reason for just fuck's sake. Like, these guys go to war, and when they're deployed for several years, they're not every ounce that they're earning, either giving it to their group at home or they're putting it in their bank account. And I mean, I've got to be honest, like, the number of veterans that I've helped in my career who truly had $0 down, I'm not real sure I've ever had one. I will say I have worked with veterans who, I mean, they don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens or $20,000, but I don't believe I've ever worked with or met a veteran who said because I have zero money, ever. Have you?
Right.
It's
I mean,
so
when I was
stupid.
doing new homes, yeah, like $1 down. But other than that, yeah, I mean, people at least have money for closing costs because they're conditioned to in this market. So $5,000 to $7,000 they at least have, even though they don't even have to put that down. Honestly, on a VA, they could roll that in, and just raise the interest rate a little bit and pay their closing costs in that, and then keep their $5,000 to $7,000. But yeah, I mean, people have the money right now. It just because they're getting a VA financed loan doesn't mean anything at all. I recently had a buyer that was buying $1 million house again, and they had the ability to pay cash. He and his wife were both prior military. He was an officer and a pilot, and had $500,000 available, and his wife had another $1.5 million. They financed it because it was better for them. And so they financed the $900,000 loan that they had. They put down $400,000, and they could have gone conventional, but they didn't. So that's a very easy way to not have to go conventional and still qualify for financing and have money in the bank. But that's, a lot of our buyers and borrowers have quite a bit, especially if they're military and they're maybe prior military and now are out and working for a DoD contractor or something. They've got quite a bit. So, don't discriminate against them because you think that they're broke because they don't have to put money down. If anybody didn't have to put money down, they would choose not to put money down too. So that's why FHA loans are, important, and chattel loans, get a lot of traction because you don't have to put as much money down. Same thing. These people just served in the military. So Lindsay's having some technical difficulties right now, but she'll be right back. I did want to touch on one of the incredible ways that VA financing works that people don't really understand. So Lindsay and I both come from the new home world, and early on we worked together for a builder, and predominantly our entire market was military here. And so I did a lot of research and found out that with a VA loan, the seller can pay up to 4% of the purchase price towards seller concessions. And those concessions can be debts. They can be, closing costs, anything like that. So if they were, for easy math reasons, if they were qualified for $400,000, that would mean that the seller could technically pay $16,000 in debt reduction for them. That $16,000 could free up a ton of money for them per month. So I've done a really quick breakdown for you guys so you can see it. Once you understand this, you're like unstoppable, okay? Like most lenders don't understand this, but I understand it at a crazy high level. So on a $400,000 loan, $16,000, that will pay off, let's say hypothetically, these are debts that almost every service member that I've ever met has had. So
Car payment.
real quick. A STAR card. It's a military credit card they give you at basic training because they hate you and want you to start credit card debt early. So typically you're going to have a $2,000 STAR card that will pay off, and that's going to be a monthly payment of $150. So the seller can pay that off, or you as an agent can donate your $2,000 of your commission if you had to, and free up $150 a month for them. Guess what? That changes their qualification quite a bit. Okay. Now they're probably also going to have a Pioneer unsecured loan for $5,000, which is a personal loan, payday loan type thing, for $250 a month. I know these are the exact numbers because I saw them every day. There's probably going to be a jeweler on there or two for some kind of engagement ring for $2,500. And that's going to be about $200 a month. And there's probably going to be a remainder of a car note of $6,500, which is about $350 a month. So that $16,000 that the seller could pay would pay off $950 a month of their debt. Okay. That's incredible because that'll change their approval from $400 to hypothetically around $500 or $600,000. So you can qualify for more house and they'll still have less debt. Military folks think in terms of monthly output. So if you're just saying $500,000, they don't know what that equates to. So you need to equate things into a monthly payment. So you need to talk to your lender early on and understand what those payments are. And if you're out showing them houses on your, MLS sheet, I always write on there like, hey, if we offer X dollars, your payment's going to be this. And I include, taxes, insurance, all of that stuff so that they have an idea of what that is. Cause they're going to ask you, because it's super important because that's how they think, because they get paid the same amount of money until they make rank every month. So that's how they think in monthly output. So if you can understand how to pay off that debt and free up extra money per month for them, that's the magic sauce. Like no one understands that. Once you get that, you're like in a different level of VA helping our VA clients. So just FYI, that's a super big, important thing that once you get that, it's a big deal.
Is that something that you would be willing to give us? And like I can put it, I'll post it for people today because that is so powerful. That's crazy.
Yep. And technically on, like if the market shifts and it changes to something that's more tough for sellers to get clients quickly, offering, instead of reducing the price by 10 grand, why not just offer a $5,000 seller concession towards not closing costs, because that's direct money out of their pocket. But if you can free up $5,000 of debt for them, that's a huge amount. Freeing up $350 a month for them is much better than $5,000 out of their pocket.
Well, and as rates rise, you're literally,
you can buy down the rate with that too.
Well, you're changing everything for them. I mean, let's say rates go up dramatically and you pay off all this debt for them, right? Then they can still afford the house that they want or even more house that they want. And also, by the way, most of the stuff that you're talking about, that's so financially smart because you're talking about depreciating assets, right? A car getting rid of stuff that appreciate and helping them buy something that does with equities. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And most of my VA clients are getting into houses. And then if we're selling them a few years later, they're turning a massive profit, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 of profit and not having to do anything to the house. So financing is a huge part of this. Like teaching finance, to your clients sometimes is a really big deal. And, what do those clients do with that massive gain of money? What are they supposed to do with that? Are they just going to have tax liability, or are you going to help train them to learn how to be wealthy in their future? It's up to you. Depends on if you want referrals for the rest of your life or not. So,
but I also heard you say something the other day that I thought was super impactful too. Like, for the average military person or serviceman, what they earn is not a lot of money. And
It's
so
not.
for these people to essentially make a windfall of 10, 20, 30, 100, $200,000 out of equity appreciation in their home, that is life changing money for
A
these
lottery.
people. Life changing money for everyone, but
Yeah.
it is. It's like winning the lottery. It's crazy.
I mean, we have a duty to not just be realtors, you know. It just because we have an R next to our name doesn't mean that's all we are, you know. Like these people, I can't tell you how many times I've helped people go out and purchase engagement rings. You know, we're negotiators for a living. We can help these people. I've helped them buy, you know, cars. These folks are, you're their family in the military because their family's a long way away. Your job here is to protect them and make sure that they're taken care of here. You know, I've been, gosh, I've probably given security background checks for my clients for their clearances because I know them probably better than most people because they don't know anybody else but me here. So you've got a huge responsibility.
Buried them.
Yeah.
And helps their family members. I mean, you truly do become their family, you know.
Yeah,
it's
you have
crazy.
to. I mean, depends on what kind of realtor you want to be or person you want to be.
So on that note, like let's say you're going into a multiple offers situation. And remember, if you guys aren't using our super cool, cute, man, I've been killing it with that offer cover letter that we made together. So if you don't have that offer cover letter, shoot us a PM or just comment and we'll get that for you guys. It's really awesome. You can edit it with your own colors and your logos and all your stuff. But let's say you're going into a multiple offers situation. How do you handle this? Like, you know, it is that fine line. Like we always say on this show, right? Rule number 1 is never piss off the listing agent. Like if you do that, you're just dead in the water. So how do you come across if you're dealing with someone that just doesn't understand any of this at all without being like aggressive, rude, bitchy, awful, but still like, how do you get the point across?
Step one
what
is
can
I have
you
my
do?
lender call them. Like because my lender is not directly in competition with them and they are the expert in their field, I have my lender call them and say, look, you don't have to worry about these things. You know, I've already got them through desktop underwriting and we have an approval. All we're waiting for is a damn house. If they can educate them better, I would rather have them do it. If these people are just not getting it through their head and they have a broker that is active that I know, I will call their broker and say, hey, my client submitted an offer on one of their properties. Can you help educate your agent to let them know what a VA loan really is? Because there seems to be some confusion. I mean, I have no problem doing that. A lot of agents don't take update classes to understand that VA appraisals don't stay with the property. And that's the number one issue that I hear all the time. Well, if the appraisal comes in low, it stays with the property. No, dumbass, it doesn't. That changed like 8 years ago.
Stays with the That's epic. Like I feel okay after this. Here's what we're gonna do. After this today, because we're both hot, we're gonna go and we're gonna write step by step all the things. And then we're gonna give you Angela's magic math numbers so that you can take all of this and learn more about it. But it's none of this is true.
Right.
Where do these people get this crap?
I think it's just bad information getting spread. And some of it even comes from lenders that maybe just don't do a lot of VA loans, that maybe focus more on FHA or conventional and don't have that knowledge. And so they might spread it too. So I always have my lenders that are up to date on their VA classes. I have them call and talk to them and maybe even call the listing agent's preferred lender and say, hey, this is when that changed, just so you know. So if I can get their buy-in, it helps me a lot. I know a lot of lenders maybe that don't specialize in VA don't have everything every single time down, all the different guidelines, because they do change. But my lenders that I work with, because we do so much VA, they absolutely have their guidelines down and they know exactly where they are and they can just share those with their lender. And that helps tremendously to be able to diffuse any myths or misconceptions about the VA loan. And without you coming off as I know everything, right? So does anybody have any other questions about anything at all pertaining to VA loans? If you do, just post a comment. I'm happy to answer those. If your clients have any questions about their COE, which is their certificate of eligibility, and how much eligibility they have left, they can easily go to ebenefits.va.gov, and they can go in there and apply and get a copy of their eligibility right then and there. That's a pretty super easy one. Real quick, talking about funding fees. The VA funding fee for your first use, first time home buyer, your first use on a VA funding fee is 2.3% of the purchase price. That's if they're active duty and have not received a Purple Heart. If they've received a Purple Heart while on active duty, they do not have a funding fee. It is waived because they will 100% have disability when they get out. If they are out of the military and have disability of any amount, so disability ratings are 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, up to 100%. They just need to have 10%, which is the lowest amount of disability they can have. So they're either not disabled or they have some disability. So if they have any disability at all, they will never pay a funding fee. That 2.3% on the first time, they'll never pay it. That saves a tremendous amount of money. And that's if they have less than 5% down. Like I said, you don't have to put any money down, but if you put, 5% plus down, your funding fee goes down a little bit, but it's still 1.6% of the purchase price. So there's really no point to put that amount down unless you can completely waive the funding fee. I wouldn't do that. I would just tack the funding fee onto the back of the loan and call it a day. So subsequent use. So if it's not the first time they're using their VA loan and they're maybe buying another house, it's 3.6% of the purchase price. That's a pretty significant amount of money. So if they have disability, it's still 0. Or if they have a Purple Heart, then it's 0. That's a massive savings. Like when you think about that, you're buying $1 million house, 3.6%, quick math. That's a ton of money that they're not having to tack onto the back. So I always help my clients, like if they've gotten out of the military and they don't know how to apply for disability, I give them those resources because that, again, is something that they should have access to. Especially if they've been in the military for any amount of time, likely you have some kind of disability because the military is not very kind to our bodies, so or our minds for that matter. So both of those things are super important, and that's a really important thing to know about and know where to find those resources. Again, talk to a lender that you trust that does specialize in VA loans. And if they don't specialize in VA loans, tell them that to earn your business, I need them to learn everything there is to know about VA loans or I can't use them. That's what I did with my preferred lender now. I liked him as a person, but he did not understand VA loans at the level I needed him to. And so he went to classes for a solid 6 months and learned everything there was to know about it. And then he taught me. And now he does all of my VA loans. So I will tell you that there are opportunities, just because they don't do them right now doesn't mean they won't in the future. So empower them to get that education too, because they might not have the same education requirements that we do. I do not have an MRP designation. I don't know what all goes with that. As realtors, that is a designation that we can have, but I personally don't. I don't know what kind of education goes with that. So I have just learned all of this organically, and by being prior military, I have a little bit of a leg up, but just know that there is a designation out there that will give you some information about VA. I believe you do have to pay for it. But it is called the MRP designation, the Military Relocation Professional or Military Real Estate Professional, something like that designation. That's what that is. So when you're talking with VA clients, it's almost like you have to learn a whole new language. You're going to hear a whole bunch of different acronyms. That's how they speak. It's like how kids these days speak in memes and GIFs and stuff. But that's a whole different language that once you understand those things, you're going to be able to find common ground with your clients. You can very easily go to just Google it and, look up military jargon or like a military language type app that's going to tell you like, hey, what does PCS mean? What does TDY mean? Those types of things are going to be really important for you to understand what they're saying. Permanent change of station is a PCS. That's when they move from one duty station to another. So that's what PCS means. So once you understand those things, it's super important that you can articulate that back to them. BAH, that's your base allowance for housing. That's what they get paid. So you can see it right on their shirt, typically, what they get paid. So that's super easy to know, what rank they are. But you always want to ask, especially if they're an officer, if they're prior enlisted or not, because their pay will be different if they're like an officer but prior enlisted. So we have a ton of knowledge available to us. So if you guys have questions, please, for the love of Jesus, ask, because we have literally been doing this for a long ass time, just specializing. I have just been specializing in this particular loan type. I'm one of those, I'm a closer that closes based on finance. I'm not one of those hard closers. I'm like a new type of closer. I close on finance. I basically show them the numbers, and if you buy the house, it's going to save you X dollars per month. If you move on base, you're an idiot, basically, and you're going to be paying the mortgage for Balfour Beatty, which is who runs the military housing on Fort Carson. So I just show people the numbers, and it's a heck of a lot easier than having to be pushy. And it's a lot easier to negotiate if you really understand this stuff, guys. Like, it really is. They're not scary. It's not a scary type of loan. But it is something that I hope that you guys will take into consideration, because they've earned the right to use it. And they should be able to use it as many damn times as they want. So, especially with what's about to happen here in our country and overseas, like, I think that it would be really lovely if you would just open that up to allow VA clients to purchase. And if not, give me a call and we can talk through it, and I'll tell you why I think it's really important.
Angela's such an amazing resource. She's probably
Lindsay's all muted. Lindsay, we can't hear you.
I'm struggling. It's windy. Can you hear me?
I don't see any questions coming across yet. Lindsay, do you see any questions coming up on the live? No? Okay. Again, if you guys have any questions at all, you can message me, add me on Facebook. And then Lindsay and I will also post underneath of our live with all the info that we talked about today and kind of that breakdown. I always write that breakdown for the monthly output versus the total amount of cost for the 4%. I write it down on a piece of paper, and they know their finances. Trust me, they know exactly how much goes out the door every month, because these guys are literally living paycheck to paycheck. So with that being said, call me. My phone number is 719-304-1980. It's on my Facebook page. You can message me, you can text me, you can call me anytime, and I will walk you guys through this personally if you need help. And I know Lindsay will too. Lindsay also worked with me when we did new homes and stuff. But when the market gets crazy, something that I always did was I talked to my sellers and we took a $1 earnest money, because we don't have to take $10,000, and taking $1 was a lot easier than, making somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck already have a hardship over a couple $1,000s of earnest money that they're going to get back anyway at the end of the transaction. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I know it was a shitload of information, but hopefully you guys will absorb it in the next coming weeks. And again, just call me if you have any questions at all. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next week.